digress here. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, March 28th at 9:08. I'd like to commence the Audit and Finance Committee meeting for the Troy LDC. Chris, would you like to take the floor?
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right, my name is Chris Stevens. I am the Senior Audit Manager with Jessica & Company in charge of your audit. You should have two documents that are delivered as part of our audit. They're right here.
I know, I got this big iPad to get away from it.
All right, the first one is called the Report to the Board of Directors. We'll go over that one first. This particular report is a report that's required under professional standards. This highlights the significant events and findings related to the audit. Starting under qualitative aspects of accounting practices, we'd like to make sure that you're aware that management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. Those policies used by the corporation are described in Note A to the financial statements. There are no new accounting policies were adopted in the current year, and current existing policies, and the application of current existing policies did not change during the year ended December 31st, 2024. We noted no transactions entered into by the corporation that lacked authoritative guidance or consensus, and all significant transactions appear to have been recorded in the proper accounting period. All financial statements do include accounting estimates. They are a significant and integral part of preparing financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We do highlight some of the more significant estimates that are baked into the LDC's financial statements. The first one is related to uncollectible loans based on management's evaluation of the collectability of the outstanding loan receivable balance based on historical loss experience and current economic conditions. Management's estimate of depreciable life, estimated residual value of capital assets is based on estimated useful length of time the individual assets are expected to provide economic benefit. Management's estimate of discount rate used is based on to calculate the lease receivable is based on and the related deferred inflows is based on the rate the corporation would charge, and is consistent with historical rates charged by the corporation under other revolving loan programs. And management's estimate of long-term, the term used to calculate the lease receivable is based on the initial lease term for the underlying lease agreement and management's determination of likelihood of any extensions or terminations being exercised. We did evaluate the key factors and assumptions used in developing these estimates, and we do believe they're reasonable given the circumstances. Certain financial statement disclosures are sensitive to the financial statements, and you have one particular one we do like to highlight here just because of the nature of it that has a significant impact going forward, and that's related to the carrying value of property held for development and resale in Note E to the financial statements. It's possible the value of the land may not be recoverable by the corporation. We're not able to obtain appropriate audit evidence to make a reasonable estimation of an impairment, if any, on that property. Accordingly, we have modified our opinion for this departure of generally accepted accounting principles. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We did not encounter any significant difficulties in performing our audit in the current fiscal year. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. We are required under professional standards to accumulate all known misstatements identified as part of the audit, communicate those to the proper level of management, and we just highlight the most significant ones here for you. We did propose an adjustment to write off the bad reserve in the current fiscal year because the loan receivable was collected after year end. So there's no longer any reason to discount the receivable balance on the face of the balance sheet. Otherwise, most of the other adjustments were related to the calculation of the lease activity during the current fiscal year. Disagreements with management. We're happy to report that we did not have any disagreements with management related to accounting or auditing matters. We will request management to provide us what's called a management representation letter that essentially just confirms to us all the assertions that they made and that they provided us all the information we requested, and that information was complete and accurate. Management's consultation with other independent accountants. If management had reached out to another accounting firm related to an auditing or accounting matter, that firm is required to communicate to us to ensure they have all the regular pertinent information, and we're required to let you know that consultation happened. We're not aware of any consultations with other outside accounting firms. Other matters, the management has omitted the management discussion analysis. It's something that's generally required of a governmental set of financial statements prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's not anything that we would audit or issue an opinion on, so the lack of that MD&A with the financial statements does not impact our audit opinion. We were not engaged to opine on the corporation's annual report, but we did look at it to make sure that it's material consistent with the financial statements in our audit. So that is the report to the board. I went through it pretty quick. A lot of information in there. Anyone have any questions?
Same as last year.
Same as last year, yes.
Did the management letter get provided, or?
There's no specific management letter. We're not issuing management letter.
We're not issuing a management, okay.
Okay. Next package we'll go through is the financial statements. Starting on page 1 through page 3. This is our auditor's opinion on the financial statements. It starts from the top where we're issuing what we call a qualified opinion. That we believe in our professional opinion that except for the items described in the basis of a qualified opinion section, that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. What we consider an unmodified, this is qualified opinion, but other than the reason for the qualification, there was no problem. Nothing came up in the financial statements that would require further adjustment of our opinion. Basis for unqualified opinion, as we discussed in Note A, the financial statements of the corporation, ultimately there's a potential impairment to the historical cost that the Kingsfield site is recorded at on the financial statements. And that particular impairment hasn't been adequately measured, which is considered to be required under generally accepted accounting principles. So since it's to continue to record that property at its historical cost, we had to qualify our opinion. So that's the reason for the qualified opinion. We did conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Generally accepted auditing standards, as well as those standards contained in government auditing standards as issued by the Comptroller General of the United States. Management is responsible for the financial statements, the fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, and for the design and implementation of a set of internal controls that allows for the fair preparation of those statements. Auditor's responsibilities, and there's a lot of information here. If you want to read it, go ahead. I'm not going to highlight each and everything here, but to summarize this information, our objective is to plan and perform our audit that allows us to express an opinion on your financial statements. We're required to design our audit that allows us to provide reasonable assurance on your financial statements. Reasonable assurance is a high-level assurance, but it's not absolute assurance because we do not look at every transaction that flows through the organization. We do believe the audit evidence that we gathered does support our audit opinion. Next page, required supplementary information. This just highlights the fact that under government accounting standards, generally there would be what's called management discussion analysis here. That is not presented. It does not impact our opinion on the financial statements. Other information refers to our consideration of your annual report that's required under public authority law. And we do read that just to make sure it's consistent with the financial statements. We don't audit it or provide any opinion on it. And the last section related to government auditing standards, that's a report that we issue when we do perform an audit in accordance with government auditing standards, and I'll address that when I get to the end of the package. So starting on page 4 of the financial statements, this is the statement in net position. Somehow the name got cut off there. Make sure that's fixed. Industrial, all your total assets and liabilities in the organization, as well as the net position at year end. Year over year, there were some things that jump out here. You did see some positive cash flow from both operations as well as leasing activity, so it's a significant increase in cash during the year. Loans receivable went up considerably. You had some additional fees and interest that was added to that balance, but also the reserve, the allowance was removed because that amount was paid after year end. Property held for lease and development, that went down by about $50,000. That was the sale of the Federal Street property during the current year. Accounts payable and accrued expenses went up significantly. Those are just some grant payments for grants that were approved during the year that didn't get paid out until after year end. So that's just the timing difference. And your loan payable went down in the current year as you continue to make the regular principal payments that are due on the loan. Page 5, this is your statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in that position. This is essentially the income statement for the organization. It does show all the revenue, all the expenses for the organization. Year over year, the increase in grant income as there were additional ARPA funds that ran through the organization in the current year. Administrative fee income, you did receive some income from the IDA in the current year related to an IDA project that you were involved in. That was the project that purchased the Federal Street property, so you did get part of that administration fee under the fee sharing agreement with the IDA. Economic development grants were up significantly expense-wise. Again, the same reason the grant revenue is up. You had additional grant funds to expend, and those amounts are in that financial statement line. Professional fees up a little bit more in the current year. You had some geothermal investigation costs that were recorded in the current year. And the bad debt expense recovery, that's a recovery in the current year because you did write off the allowance as of 12/31/2024. Page 6, the statement of cash flows. This provides information for the source and use of cash during the current fiscal year. You can see the cash provided by operations was a positive $95,000. You also received an additional $162,000 from cash flow from capital and related financing activities. That's mainly related to lease payments and amounts received from the National Grid license agreement. And you just received some interest in the current year too, so you saw a net increase in cash of $261,000. Starting on page 7 and going through page 10, this is note 8 of the financial statements. This is the accounting policies of the organization. As I mentioned in the board report, there was no change to these during the current fiscal year. They are considered to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Page 10, note B, just provides some information relating to your cash equivalents as well as your the risk related to your cash. You did have about $240,000 in cash that was uninsured. However, the bank did, as they're required by law, they did hold collateral in your name to cover that shortfall. Note C provides information to your notes receivable, $82,000 that was collected after year end. Note D just provides information related to your capital asset activity. Note E, your property held for development. As you can see, the Federal Street property was gone in the current fiscal year. Note F just provides information related to your loan payments, and as well as the future debt service payments that are required under that agreement over the next 2 years. Note G just provides information related to the leasing activity of the organization, as well as on top of page 14, an estimate of your cash flow due each year, estimated cash flow due each year on those lease agreements. And then note I just provides a little information related to your related party transactions. You do receive some staff support and office space related to the corporation from the city of Troy without compensation. The IDA does have, you do have that revenue sharing agreement with the IDA. You received $67,000 revenue in the current year respective to that. And then you do have a note payable to the CRC of $215,000 still outstanding. And then on page 16, this is our independent auditor's report that we issue when we do perform an audit under government auditing standards. It reports on 2 areas. It reports on our consideration of your internal control over financial reporting, and on compliance with laws and regulations that could have a direct and material impact on the financial statements. Report and internal controls of financial reporting. We do consider your internal control to the extent that allows us to plan or perform our audit. We do not perform enough tests of your internal control that allows us to express an opinion on its effectiveness. However, if we do become aware of anything that we consider a deficiency in internal control, we would report that here. We do not identify any deficiencies in internal control over financial reporting that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. And report on compliance and other matters. As I mentioned before, we do consider compliance with laws and regulations that could have a direct and material impact on the financial statements. And if we identified any non-compliance with those type matters, we report those here. We're happy to report we didn't identify any non-compliance that's reportable under government auditing standards. So that are your financial statements. A lot of information. Any questions?
Yeah, I just need a clarification. So on page 1, you have your discussion on note A for the cost of King Fuel. And then on page 12, we have a value of 1.8, basically 1.9 million for that. Are you stating that, are you going on record that you don't think that property on page 1 is not worth 1.9 million? Is that what you're stating?
We're saying we were not able to gather enough evidence to suggest it was or wasn't.
Okay, didn't we go through that exercise and get it appraised this year, or was that last year?
We did, I think, and Andrew, I think, helped with that. We got fairly recent appraisals within the last 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
But the issue is, and he can speak to it, I think, a little more specifically, the impairment is a big question mark in terms of being able to value the property on the open market versus what's going on with National Grid there.
Okay.
So it's hard for any appraiser, I think, to land on an exact value, right?
Right. No, I agree 100%.
Once it's clean is a different story,
Right.
but, yeah.
Okay.
We're almost on the other side of that.
Okay. I didn't know, since we did get that appraisal done, if that... Okay.
Next year might be, or the coming years might be, a way for us to bifurcate that analysis.
Bifurcate,
as we get into, we're going to, I think within the next 2 years, that entire site is going to be re-subdivided and set up as different parcels.
Okay.
There may be clean parcels and still impaired parcels. So some of that appraised value or imputed value may drop out and be actually hard and market value because it's cleaned, and other parts may still be impaired. So it's, I think on a rolling basis, as we work, we're hoping to sell the thing.
Right.
At some point, our balance sheet might reflect a little bouncing around in terms of value.
Okay.
So.
Any other discussion?
Well, so that, the same issue relates to the Federal Street and Northern Drive properties, is that what you're saying?
It's really directly related to the King's School site and possible impairment there. Does the building have the value that it's recorded at? There's lots of different questions related to that. If you're going to sell it before the remediation is complete, you're going to receive less money for it. So that's going to mean that's not going to be recoverable. So it just becomes, right now, it's kind of like a shot in the dark.
Right.
When those balances were originally recorded, the concept was you're going to hold this until, the project's complete and it should be recoverable. Based on recent activity that has been brought into question. So it's kind of like we're just kind of highlighting, there might be an impairment here. It's not measurable at this point in time.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the reports?
I'm good.
Now, as a whole, do we need to vote on this?
The
We have to
audit
bring
committee
this-
will advance it to the full board. So
Okay.
they accept it and then send it up to the next meeting.
Okay.
With their endorsement, yeah.
Okay. So do we need to make a motion on this?
So I'll make a motion to move the audit, to the regular meeting.
For a second?
Second.
Okay, very good. Any opposed, or all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Actually, I jumped over the minutes of March 27, 24. Jumping right into Chris's report. Thank you, Chris.
No problem.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from 2024?
I will, just making sure I was there, I will make a motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay. We're gonna adjourn.
Motion.
Okay. Pardon me, guys. Okay, I'm going to open the Board of Directors meeting for Troy LDC on March 28th at 9:28 a.m. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of February 21, 2025. Let's see. Everybody at this table was here.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. Executive Director's report.
I have, it's more of a question. I just could, and maybe Andrew, this is best for you to answer, just going through briefly about what's going on exactly at the county waste site, and I know there's an issue with the drum, or could you go into that just a little bit, please?
Yeah, I received it's not a county waste site, it's on a Kingsfield site.
Kingsfield, yeah.
Along the river, kind of, well, it's in the southwest corner, close to the Brown property. The Brown and Caulfield, folks have just seen it as they looking on the river bank. It's an area that's going to be involved in the stage 3 phase of remediation. So they were just some reconnaissance. There's an older 55-gallon drum, a little tank bottom, looks to have been there for a while. Overgrowth around it has encompassed it, so there's fine type growth on it. It's not compromised, it's not, but it's very muddy, with kind of petroleum smell coming from it. So I think, based upon observation, that it's probably some petroleum waste oil, hydraulic oil, something that was left behind from something on site, which, going back, could be a number of things, could happen during demolitions. Does not look like it was specific dumping, because of the location and the fact that such a singular item. Looks like it had been placed there at some point in time and just not dealt with. So I've got a 3 requests for quotes to remove it, well, to categorize it, basically pop the lid, see what's in it, categorize it, and then dispose of it properly. Because the drum is crimped on the bottom, it most likely will necessitate an overpack, which is where they put it in the larger barrel, to fill around it and then take it for disposal. I get the actual number of that, which shouldn't be too long. You don't know. But it's a singular item, and because it's an item that is not responsibility of National Grid as part of the remedial construction, it does fall upon the property owner.
And I apologize, I said county waste because I had them in my mind as well with what we're dealing with over there, so I swapped. But is that, I don't know how much we talk about this here, but what's getting ironed out with that?
Yeah, just as a quick update, there was a wall collapse on a building that has largely been not used by county waste. The LDC owns it, the site is leased to Waste Connections County Waste. And there's a sublease that the LDC has for the roof with SL Empire Solar, and they have a number of leases. It was Monolith, and now it's another company.
That they sold off, right?
Same firm that has the former dump lease with the solar on it. That particular unit with the wall collapse, it affected some of the interconnect wiring. So we're looking at the lease and looking at insurance and going to determine what next.
That's where we're at with it.
We're at the what next part. Yeah.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to.
Hey,
and
actually, Andrew, jumping back to that drum, what do you think, if your guess, because it's going to come out of our coffers here, what are you looking at for a number, what is a guess?
Don't really know.
$5,000?
Pardon?
$5,000-ish?
Last time we had any drum work down there was ago, so I haven't had any kind of new
Okay.
costs relative to categorization and disposal. It's a singular item.
Right.
In waste, here to estimate once it's been categorized through the lab, but I would say probably about the $4,000 to $5,000 range.
$5,000 to remove a drum?
Okay.
There.
It's mostly the disposal and the
Well,
testing
it's
costs.
the test,
and-
it's all that soft cost, yeah, figuring out what it is and,
Still writing down on my sheet 5 to 10 because
Right.
that's always how it goes.
right,
Yeah. They're gonna hire a testing company to go out there
Right.
first, and
Right.
then come back with a report, and
right,
then
that's,
come up
there's
with a plan.
1,500, 2,000 right there, just to mobilize and get out and, yeah, yeah.
We're in the wrong business.
Yeah, yes, we are. Yes, we are.
And then, I know you would anyways, but just, once we go through that, back to the community waste, I know that you're reviewing the lease and stuff, but we can always touch base on that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and I know, whatever too, the city has to be involved, you know, I mean, I know we had Russ go out there and evaluate it, and then we had the, you know, our electrical team go out and just make sure some of the stuff was safe, but
Right. They have an
it's
interconnect there you can
holding
kill.
to do
Yeah.
whatever until we figure this
Yeah.
part out, so.
If the city has a role in terms of, you know, derelict buildings or
Mhm.
abandoned buildings, and it kind of is,
Yeah.
ish, you still have the regulatory control over, whether or not the building is stabilized, can be rescued, or it might
Mhm.
be considered to be demolished. And that'll have an impact on what the rights and obligations of the LDC are, with the solar company.
Mhm.
If it's determined that it has to come down, then we'll work it out.
Work it out, that's what I figured, I'd let you do your
Yeah.
thing first before I
Yeah.
would do that, so we'll talk, cool.
But we are covered insurance-wise, though, right?
Yeah, if we wanted to make a claim and rescue the building, and that might be part of the analysis, I don't know.
Okay.
Whether or not it's of any use to Waste Connections is another question, and is there a better use for that strip of land? Which, we're
Mhm.
talking about literally if you've been in the transfer station, you drive down the driveway off Water Street,
Okay,
and you go into the transfer station to the left, on the driveway on the right-hand side, there's a number of older buildings that are wedged in between the driveway
okay.
and the Wynantskill, the upper Wynantskill.
Yep.
It's a strip of land that the LDC owns all the way up to Water Street.
okay,
That might have some use, or maybe even daylighting it and making it
Mhm.
look prettier someday, I don't know, but,
Yeah,
Okay.
we're taking a look at, all the options.
okay.
yeah, and I know, I mean, Russ's just first look at it, at least, I mean, although that one, the west side, wall there, I mean, just blew right out, but, you know, I know his initial thought was that the other part of the structure was actually probably pretty solid, that's why he
Right.
said, you know, figure what we wanna do, and then we'll come back to this, and as long as the power's taken care of, just in case,
Yeah.
that we're not really at risk of anything.
They have a little transformer there, you can just kill their system, it
Yep.
doesn't feed into the,
Yeah,
I think that's what happened when they realized that they put it offline,
yeah,
I assume.
yeah.
They're not coming after us for lost revenue, though, are they?
We're taking a look.
Okay.
It was dormant for years while Monolith was in the bankruptcy proceeding, and then this company bought out their assets and then activated it.
Okay,
So it really hasn't been online more than a year maybe, but after being built for almost 5.
Yeah, I know that was a lot of it was, they're not even working, now they are, no, they are, don't, you know, so, okay.
okay,
Somebody's getting some tax credits off them, I think is the end of the bottom line there.
exactly. Okay.
On a positive note, is there something, is the road being paved? Wasn't there some issue about the access road,
Water Street.
Water Street?
Water Street is a mess.
I drove up there about a month ago. Yeah.
Mm,
The turn at Chevron, and then when you get into the transfer station are pretty,
yeah,
But I thought I saw an email that
The location-
Chip said that it was on the schedule to be repaved this year.
The trouble is, and this has existed, last repair done, there was a major, repair done here, County Waste driveway, this is for entry off of Water Street.
you can see the cut there, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it's recessing, or, issue is, there's cobblestones. And unless those cobblestones are removed prior to, creating a subbasin, on, you know, they have
Freeze-thaw, pop,
wear issues.
mm,
It's not ideal. Cobblestones, bricks.
Heavy traffic there too, trucks.
It's extremely heavy traffic, yeah, and I believe there is an obligation, the King Fuel site to maintain that for back.
Well, we have the $10,000 a year out of county waste as part of their lease obligation that the LDC is supposed to use for road improvements, if there was a known wear and tear issue, so.
And as the remedial construction goes on and the road along county waste is the best it's ever been, there might not be a need to utilize that maintenance fee. It can be utilized for driveway area. Even if it's just a section to remove the cobbles and replace where the border line is done. That's,
You need to go down a couple feet, they'll put sub base and all that other stuff.
you have to excavate and then build up, absolutely.
Yeah.
But as it exists, it's turning a dimple, a big dimple that's going to gain water and just progressively getting.
Oh, yeah, I saw when I was down there for this collapse here, so.
Whether, what the elevation is above, for pipe and vibration, that's also another question.
What do we, that 10K a year, do we?
The LDC could just give it to the
basically,
city, if
do we
the city
ba-
rips
have we
through
been
there.
banking it basically, or what?
I think there's been occasional work done here and there that
Okay.
that's been used towards, but you could do a force account with the city if DPW goes through. That turn down by the Chevron is real rough too, and that's on LDC land, I think,
Hmm.
where Water Street stops, kinda.
Kind of, there's a question as to whether, well, the city has ownership, the county also is involved, and because,
Oh, to the waste treatment plant going down that way?
Mhm.
Okay.
and because you're at the CSX right away, area there, they're fully responsible for the track area.
Right.
50-foot spot.
I thought I was gonna lose a shock in there when I went through, yeah.
It's better than it was, believe me. But really, that's less of an issue than you progress easterly on.
Well, the LDC can contribute to whatever, you know, I don't know if you're using CHIPS or if it's just general city programming in
Yeah,
there,
I'll have to
but-
look into that, 'cause I didn't chip, I don't know.
I saw an email, I'll
Sure, I'm
flip
on
it
the
to you.
email, but, but we are gearing up with, 'cause you know, me and Chip have weekly meetings gearing up, well, and through the paving, so, of course, and there's the lead pipe coordination as well, but yeah, if you wanna throw that to the top of my email box, thank you.
It's something as simple as the city, you know, billing us for $10,000, that's a way to
Yeah,
kind of subsidize that budget,
Yeah.
because you're probably stretched on that one too, but.
stretched on everything.
Yeah.
There's the, isn't there like a smaller office building down there that's not really used, or is that used? Am I making sense?
There's
The ELA building, or what we used to call the ELA building?
on our property or on county roads?
Well, I think it's on our property, right? The LDC, don't we own like a little building down there, right by the,
Right by the bridge, I mean, that's
That's
like 40,000 square feet,
The
yeah.
former ELOC building.
okay, that's the LDC's, right?
Yeah.
It's-
Grid is technically using it, I think,
Yeah,
so.
we're under the license agreement, we're using it, contractors cold storage in the warehouse portion.
Parking the trucks in
Protect
there,
their
I think.
equipment.
Okay,
No water, there's no electric, well, there is electric.
really,
now,
oh,
but there's no water, there's no heat. The roof is not in the best condition, and there's water infiltration on the western side,
nice.
wall, block wall.
It'll come down after Grid's done.
It
Good.
has been,
Okay, okay.
it has been.
So it won't be
surveyed
the
for
planning
asbestos,
commissioner's
there's
new
no
office.
exposure. So, it's a straight demo.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Decision.
Okay,
You know, self-storage redevelopment.
so we gotta have it right,
Got a big window office on the river.
right?
Yep.
I think, you know what, it was, I think early on, a staff member brought up a thought of down the road, you know, possibly, you know, would the LDC sell that to the city to use it for some type of, you know, recycling, sanitation, coordination
For many
stuff,
years,
but-
it just did.
Yeah,
There was salt stored in there for a while,
okay,
and some trucks, and I think some DPW stuff.
It was a
Did you-
catch-all,
Yeah.
for everything, because that started getting used once ELOT left,
mhm,
but prior to that, the buildings that existed on the King Fuel site, southern.
To the south, yeah.
mm,
Were where the, all was stored.
okay.
Oh, that's right, yeah,
Yeah, we were talking about, and I don't, the old lot, because at some point, the city, we'd really like to work on reclaiming pavement for the, colder months. Because the cold patch really doesn't do any, it's probably one of the biggest wastes of money. You know, and I've heard often, oh, too bad we don't have ELAT still, that could have been used, or, but,
The location of the building is difficult for the reuse of the site. It's kind of, it prevents the best use of that area. The area around the Sperry warehouse obviously presents a good mobility location. Direct access to, Main Street and a southern location for the city. It is something that had been discussed in preliminary discussions with other, in concert with other development options, to have a municipal storage area in concert with anything else that was proposed there. So
Like a city barn or something, yeah.
Yeah, like a beehive or something.
yeah,
So that we wouldn't have to go up to the landfill or concert with the county.
yeah. Okay. Good stuff. All right. Thanks for my report, guys.
Next item is, new business. So let's see, look at the election, were we gonna do election of officers?
Nate has that resolution in the packet, yeah.
Okay. It is, yep.
Like a modified
Right, that's all.
and then those other, like, in documents.
I can give you a quick summary if that would help.
I was gonna say, that would be fantastic.
Each year, at the same time that we receive our annual audit management letter, which was presented earlier, the LDC adopts what we call an annual meeting resolution. It accepts the audit, readopts certain policies, investment and property disposition that are required under the public affairs law. And it's a bit of a kitchen sink as well. We attend to reestablishing annual officer roles, the chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary, and set the audit and finance committee and governance committee of the board, which are typically filled as a committee of the whole. So there isn't a separate breakout. The appointment of staff also occurs within the annual meeting resolution, and we can discuss those. And I believe it's anticipated that folks are going to retain the same roles that they've had historically. And as part of that, we can either address it in this resolution or separately afterward. There's going to be a ratification of the staff services contracts as part of today's agenda. The resolution itself in front of you deals with the audit. That's the official acceptance of it, and why Chris is here helping us today. And if there's a discussion before a vote is taken, just to confirm the chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary roles, now's the time if you'd like to speak to that.
Is there, I don't know if I have the, is there just one of the annual resolution?
It's inside your agenda.
Oh, here we go.
Double-sided.
There's one right there if you need it. I got an extra.
I
Starts
found
right
it,
there,
actually.
yeah.
Okay.
So just, so really us, if we want to just, go ahead and pass this entire resolution in one vote, we're accepting our audit, we're accepting that everybody stays in their office positions, and we're accepting the roles that everyone assumes as staff, then we
Correct.
can address the separate resolutions when it comes to the actual contract and payment.
That makes sense?
Okay.
Are we also accepting the Paris report at the same time?
You're right, Dan, I forgot that part. Yeah,
Okay.
that's accepted as well. We have a copy and a
Right.
printout here.
And it was sent to us yesterday, so
Yeah.
I read it for the first time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danae, for the
Yeah.
annual headache.
Yep.
Thank you, Danae.
Yes, appreciate it today.
Tell ya.
So for new business, we have our, as Justin nicely summarized, we have a massive proposal in front of us here. So we need a motion to accept as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried. All right. Old business. Geothermal update, I'm assuming Andrew?
We actually, Andy, I think we would address these resolutions as well.
I thought it was all part of it.
Business, yeah,
Okay.
resolution.
Okay, sorry about that. The third part of what we just did.
That was the last
I'll line it up,
year.
each year there's an annual services agreement for staff that contribute to the operations of the LDC. The Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director, which Seamus has served in that role. Deputy Executive Directors, Randy, and Danae as Acting Secretary. I believe there's just the three.
There's,
Oh, is there a fourth?
Andrew is a
And
project
Andrew-
manager.
Oh, and the project manager as well. I'm
Mm.
sorry, yeah. Stuck to the other one. The three of them have a proposed agreement with an amount. For purposes of voting and putting these on the table, just each individual who is the subject of the resolution would recuse themselves from the vote.
And may I just out of curiosity, why do we refer to Danae as the acting secretary? Is the secretary?
There's a secretary board position that we just approved, and honestly, I don't know who serves in that role on the
I don't
board.
know if it was Tom.
Might be Tom, yeah.
Okay.
So in the bylaws, there's a secretary that is given a bunch of duties, and it's mostly ceremonial, and someone else, lucky enough, is at the staff level serving as acting
Okay,
secretary.
so that's, okay.
Okay. So do we need to make, since there's 4 of these, are we gonna be able to do this because there's not enough people?
You're fine with 3, it's just each time, when we deal with Randy, he recuses. When we
Okay.
deal with Seamus, he
So
recuses.
there's only 2 board members. There's only 3 board members here.
Yeah, we're 3 out of 5, we have a quorum. We can approve.
Okay, but if one has to recluse, then there's only 2.
We have a majority of those present within the quorum.
Okay, fair
The
enough.
IDA needs to always have, a minimum vote of 5 out of 9.
Got it.
The LDC is more flexible.
Got it, okay, fair enough. Okay, so the first, God, I can't read, guys, I'm sorry. I know, I am. So this is the, authorization for the Deputy Executive Director.
Okay, so I will make a motion.
I can't second it, can I? Make one? Okay, great. Yay? I'm voting yay.
Aye.
Aye, so moved.
Congratulations.
Okay, Chief Executive Officer.
So we're sorry.
I'll make a motion, since I can vote.
This is for the executive director, right?
Yeah, the Chief Executive Officer, Executive Director. Yep.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. Voting for it, yes, aye.
Aye.
Okay, so moved. The Senior Project Manager, I will make a motion as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Acting Secretary, I will make a motion. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Beautiful. Okay, on to, now we're on to old business. Okay, so we're just gonna do the geothermal, we're not doing the community business, right? Is that what I heard?
We're gonna hold this.
Okay.
So the geothermal update. So just to recap what we mentioned at the last meeting, working backwards from a July 9th date, which is when the public, National Grid has to do its filing to the Public Service Commission for the proposed geothermal pilot project, of which we're involved with.
And that was June 8th, Randy, did you just say?
July 9th.
July 9th.
July 9th.
June 8th, that's
So there's a number of elements of that we have to get in place between now and then. One is we need to do, City Hall has to make a final secret determination on the whole project, which includes the leases and subleases that are going to take place between the city and the LDC, and the LDC and National Grid. And we're relying on Justin to get those in place with Rick.
Yeah.
Rick Morrissey, our
Tony's gonna
corporate
start
counsel.
writing drafts next week.
Okay. The plan now is really to get the secret determination onto the Finance Committee agenda of the City Council on April 20th, with the regular meeting on May 1st, I think it is.
That's 3 months away. You gonna be able to get it done?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
Did we already have seeker in front of the council for this?
They had, back
Or my-
in, several months ago, they had taken lead agency. They
They
had
accepted lead agency, and
accepted
now
lead
we're actually
agency.
getting or we're gonna get their
We have to
determination?
get a determination,
Okay,
yes.
that's what I,
Yes.
That seeker's done, and the planning board is gonna have a little bit of work to do that's mostly focused on National Grid's pump station.
Yes.
This is a vertical element.
Yeah, when the project was originally envisioned, the National Grid, quote, Energy Center, which is really pump station, was gonna be in the atrium. Turned out that wasn't a suitable location, so it's been proposed to be relocated at 249 River Street, which is right next to One Monument Square. And on that's city-owned property, and National Grid will need to build a building there. And to do that, they need to go through the planning board, as well as the historic review committee, because it's in the historic district. But that's all, they are on agendas for review by the planning board and the committee. And so things are moving along there. The other big piece of this is we've started negotiations with National Grid on the thermal resource fee, which is kind of like I don't know what the right word for it is. Everything hinges on this, is coming up with that fee amount that will ensure that all costs associated with this project are covered, and there's little to no financial risk for the LDC or the city.
That's the big,
Yeah.
That's the big.
So is Grid gonna buy the 249 River Street? Are they gonna buy it?
It's
No.
gonna be I think it'll be a lease.
There'll be a lease from the city to the LDC in the first instance, and then the LDC subleases to National Grid.
Okay, the LDC doesn't own the property now, though, right?
No, we have to take a lease from the city.
Okay,
And the city's able to do that with LDCs, to do a direct negotiation for a
Okay.
buck or whatever, and that's one of the useful tools of this organization.
okay.
And from there, the LDC can also lease at arm's length, negotiate terms directly with National Grid. Outside of having an LDC involved, the city's kind of stuck going out for, bids and,
Yep.
it's hard to negotiate in that environment, so the LDC's facilitating a lot of this
Okay.
in the middle,
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
oh, very good,
something else I'll be talking to you about at the end of the meeting.
yeah. Okay, any other discussion on the geothermal? Okay, and we're tabling the community business improvement grant, correct? Okay, so we're on to financials.
Do we need to talk about those letters, or you approve those to ask for the money back?
Oh,
I printed them. For that. Do we need to approve those letters or anything?
or is that?
You can just discuss it, and, it's an item
Okay.
if you
Well,
want.
we did it last month, then, I guess. I didn't know if we could.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable letting them rip, let them rip, and it's just a small adjustment to cite the program guidelines and.
Yeah, and just to put out, it's a letter going out to, folks that did receive the, community business improvement grant that is sent out to the city, and that's, part of the agreement, so, we're at least trying to get, we're going for, is it the
Recapture.
materials we're trying to go back for right tonight? Yeah, just to, so everybody's aware.
Okay.
Two recipients will get just two, right, tonight? Yeah, we'll get the letter.
Okay. Okay, on to financials.
Our first report is the statement of financial position. $556,095 of that was cash. The total liability is $1,292,048, which was a fund balance of $2,536,302. There's no significant changes to the statement of financial position. Lastly, we have the statement of activity. For the month of February, we had a surplus of $166,575. Our most significant source of revenue was ARPA money received, and then the largest expense was in our pilots that were paid, but the Water Street pilot will be reimbursed by county waste.
Okay. Are there any questions on the financials?
Yeah, actually. So, on the cash balance, that is, last month we talked about this issue in regards to the IDA, where there was a pretty significant amount of money in cash account, and we were discussing whether or not, how the cash flows, how they, and whether or not some of that money that's sitting in a cash account not really earning anything, whether or not it could be invested in just CDs and a higher return.
Yeah.
Just, with $509,000, I don't know how steady that is, but I'm wondering if we should be looking at that the same way.
Biggest outflow that I can think of right now is the payment of the HUD loan in August. That'll be principal and interest, so probably around $180,000 coming out.
We set up what's called a sweep in my businesses, where we set a minimum dollar value, say, in this case, $100,000. Anything above $100,000, we automatically sweep it off into an interest-bearing every single night.
You just gotta forecast 12 months of cash, and if you're gonna do a 12-month laddered CD,
Oh, no, this
move
isn't
200
a
right
CD. This is just this goes into it's just instantly it goes into a, they sweep it every night, and you get the interest overnight, or if it's a weekend, you get it for the 3 days.
We have to do collateralized market securities. We can't do funds. We have to kind of be in a collateralized account that's backed by bonds, basically. And so, if you go into CDs, there's a penalty if you yank early if you have a cash need. But there might be 200 out of the 509 here that could park, or based on cash forecasts. So, working with Matt, you could give him guidance or allow that to be parked and generate more than I don't know what our budget shows for projected interest income this year, but you might be able to goose that a little bit by moving some around. Whatever bank it's in, you could ask them what the options are for a 6 or a 12, and
we've never been in that position before.
I would suggest we do the cash flow analysis and figure it out.
Okay. Now, who would do that? Would you guys work on that?
Working with Matt.
Okay, all right.
you just look at your budget and project out, see where you're gonna land.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the financials as presented?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Only 1 minute over.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.